So greetings, my name is Rafael Ruiz from Kinokuniya bookstores in New York City, and today we are meeting with author Sarina Dahlan.
Hi.
Okay. So Sarina was born into an Indonesian family in Thailand and immigrated to the United States at the age of 12. While children in the West grow up on fairy tales, she learned parables through ghost stories, mythologies, and Japanese manga. A graduate of the University of California, San Diego with degrees in psychology and visual arts, she has blended both disciplines in careers as an advertising producer, a corporate marketing strategist, and an award-winning writer. She lives in California with her family and is currently raising her 3 children on a healthy diet of history, Thai curry, and scientific thinking.
That's a really long bio. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. So to start off, I wanted to ask probably the most important question right off the bat is, what's your favorite Japanese manga?
Doraemon.
Ooh,
Have you ever read it?
Yes, absolutely.
The old school stuff. I love, love, love Doraemon. I grew up on that, and every new ideas I ever get probably has roots that can be traced back to Doraemon. I just love the characters. I love the futuristic vision, how creative it was. And I think it was written in the 60s too, to have that level of creativity back then. It's just amazing. I ate it up. And I'm not sure. I probably read almost everything. I don't know. I grew up on it. So I grew up on a steady diet of Doraemon.
So your debut novel, Reset.
Yeah, I have it too.
So just to start, this might obviously be a little bit of an oversimplification, but what do you hope readers will get out of this work?
Well, I wrote Reset initially as a utopia. So the 4 cities this place was set, was inspired by the lyrics of Imagine. And I just love how optimistic and innocent that song is. And I really wanted to write a place that embodies it. And but as I was writing, I realized, everyone's utopia is a dystopia. However, what I do hope the readers will get out of it is to imagine, to try to imagine, can we get there? Can we get to this vision of utopia that the lyrics talk about without having to erase our memories? Can we try to find our way to harmony somehow, either by relearning what we were taught or rewriting the narrative of all of these things that, put us against another human being. So that's ultimate hope. But also I want the readers to enjoy the story.
So you just mentioned obviously your work was inspired by John Lennon's Imagine, and also as well as Buddhist philosophy. Was that a conscious choice you made before starting the writing process, or was it something that started to come up as you actually began writing? Like, what came first?
So I would say the question came first. The question came because, and this is why I love the writing process, because it started when like in the middle of the night, where I was just really frustrated with my own writing, and I decided to erase everything that I had written. I spent months writing, and as I was staring at like this blank screen, the question came to me, like, what would life be like? What would we be like if we can erase our memories the same way we erase documents? And why would a society need to do that? And what kind of world are we going to end up with? And the lyrics of Imagine just kind of came into it. It just made like sense, and it's one of my favorite songs. And with that, the idea of erasing memories. I grew up in Thailand, so I grew up surrounded by Buddhism. I'm not Buddhist, but I grew up surrounded by it. And the idea, Buddhist philosophy teaches us that the path to nirvana is through detachment, right? And if memories are the seeds of attachment, then the logical path to peace is to erase our memories. And so, just marrying all of that together, it just kind of, it was this natural progression. And I can't say that there was one specific moment that made me marry those two, but I do remember that one specific moment that the question came. So
it seems like it must have been a very terrifying thing to do, to erase all of your previous writing. I feel like for a writer, just the idea of like going back to a blank slate must
it's
not have been
terrifying.
must not have been an easy thing to do.
No, but you know what? There was also relief that was mixed in with that feeling, because sometimes like you get so stuck in an idea that you are it becomes a weight. And then you have to kind of disentangle yourself from it. And sometimes, I mean, writing isn't rewriting, and sometimes it's about throwing the whole thing away and coming up with something else. I don't think that it was a waste of time, though, having written that book, because every time you write something new, you are honing your skill set as a writer, and you become better each time. So nothing's lost.
Of course. So your book has a number of important characters. We see two of them being, and I hope I'm saying their name right. We have Aris and Metis.
Aris? No, not Aris. No, it's Eris. Sorry.
Yeah. And Metis?
Metis.
Eris and Metis. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about them and maybe some of the other players we will meet during Reset?
Yeah, of course. So Eris is the main character. She's a scientist. And we meet her when she feels pretty content with her life. She feels fine with the idea of Tablaraza. She goes through life, not really feeling like she needs to be attached to anyone. So she only ever goes on first date because she doesn't see a point to going on second date. So, and she's just kind of like, this is fine. She's just chilling. And then comes this guy, Benja. He's a writer. Where Eris is very logical, Benja is all heart. And Benja comes in as they meet on this this dating app. But of course, Eris, doesn't do second dates. However, they hit it off as friends. So they have this very kind of, they end up with this friendship that's intimate but non-sexual, but at the same time he has this passion inside him and this drive to find the truth within his dreams, because there's this group of people who are called the dreamers, who believe that your memories of your past cycles reside in dreams. And so as he travels this path, he kind of takes her along with him, kicking and screaming, because she wouldn't have done that otherwise, because she was happy, and then eventually she meets Metis, who is the leader of the Dreamer, also a pianist, and who happens to also be her past lover from the past cycle. And so, there's kind of like these push and pull between different characters who are different, who remember, who don't remember, and all of these kind of dynamic of like which side is going to win. And I kind of approached it as there's no right or wrong here. Everyone has their own path, and they just happen to meet, and and the story is about what happens when all of these characters meet.
There was I just finished the book, and it was a fantastic cast of characters. So the Tablaraza is an important feature of your story. In this post-dystopian city, every 4 years, people's memories are wiped clean to avoid the danger of like learned prejudices. Mm-hmm. So why in this world are learned prejudice seen as like the ultimate evil that must be like gotten rid of?
Yeah, so the reason the 4 cities continue to exist is because there was this last war that happened kind of like about 200 or so years ago. And the last war wiped out most everyone, except there were survivors in this place called the 4 cities. And the 4 cities were built prior to the last war as model cities of sustainable living. And that's part of the reasons why it was, they were able to survive. And so the survivors understand that they are the last of humanity. And the planner who, created this 4 cities and eventually made decision on Tablaraza, his one ultimate goal has always been to protect humanity at all costs. He sees himself as the protector, and knowing and understanding that humans do have this tendency to, destroy each other in some ways. He went into, this protection mode. And we see, it's like the learned prejudices and what it's doing to our society today. We have genocide, we have wars, we have racism, we have all kinds of hatred. And that's all stemmed from our, somehow along the way, we were taught to be afraid of each other, to be hateful of each other for whatever reason, and it's one of those things where he's like, well, if we are to survive, we need to be able to get rid of our natural tendency in his mind, natural tendency to destroy each other.
What's so interesting about that is that it definitely seems like something someone in this world would come up with and try to think about, like how plausible it seems that this world can fall into that. It was kind of fascinating to think about, because it's true, everything you were saying.
Yeah. And it's true. It's like last year when we were in the middle of holidays, awful injustice that we were witnessing. I sometimes would go into the book, and luckily I was in the process of kind of like re-editing it and all of that. I would just go into the book and I felt, this is nice. This is nice. It's a nice place to be. No one cared. No one cared about each other's face because all the decisions were taken away from their hands. There was no racial issue there because the survivors or the people in the 4 cities have their DNAs mixed together. So everyone is mixed. And when you're mixed, you're all kind of, belong to the same group of people. You're kind of, because it's like race is really a societal construct. And in this world, the planner believes that whatever human made, human can remake. So.
Right. And obviously at the base of your novel, it is a love story. The little subtitle with the cover says, can we love someone that we don't remember?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have this notion of just like love at first sight. And I'm sure there's other people who think, meeting people from previous lives and everything like that. How do you feel these things are even possible, besides obviously like love at first sight? Or do you think it's something like just innately human to believe that this idea of just click with someone to that level? And I think
we do have, I don't know if I would call it fate or destiny. I would think of it more as karma. And that's a part of Buddhism that kind of is imbued within the book is the idea of cause and effect, right? We have an innate feeling when we meet certain people based on whatever that happened to us in the past. Perhaps, we can find so many different reasons, but a lot of times it's this gut reaction that you don't know why. And that can be based on so many things, but a lot of times it has to do with whatever happened to us that kind of made us feel a certain way. It's all cause and effect,
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that it's predestination in ways where there's this all-powerful being that made us walk along a certain path. I think those paths are drawn by us based on every decisions that we had made in the past.
Now, in the book, you obviously made a dynamic tension between the need to blank slate people's minds and versus the value of their memories. And as you were just saying before, like seems like such a nice world to live in where everyone forgets everything. But then there are the values of holding on to people's memories. And was there like something you're hoping to get out from that juxtaposition?
I think it has to do with, whether or not one has faith in humanity or not. The planner didn't. The planner felt that in order for us to coexist in peace, we have to have our memories wiped and taking that out of our hands. However, I tend to think differently. I think that there is another way to get to this path of harmony. And so I feel like writing Reset was really a conversation I was having with myself. It's like, do we, as a human race, do we have faith in each other enough, in the world enough? And which path which decision would we choose? And I would love for the readers to also, as they read, think about, how they feel in each step of the way, because I wrote the 4 cities specifically as a utopia because I wanted us to be able to kind of to root for it as well, because there's a lot to really like in this place. And yeah, it's a conversation I was having with myself that I'm hoping that my readers will also have as they read this book.
Right. And in terms of people having their memories wiped, then there's obviously seems to be things that evade the Tablaraza, like musical abilities. Metis is a pianist. Can you tell us a little bit about things that don't actually get touched by the Tablaraza?
Yeah, so things that are innate, kind of like, and it's kind of, reflective of how we retain things as well. It's like a lot of times artistic ability or musical ability is seen as an innate talent. Yes, we do go to classes and to get better skilled, but there is this kind of, a natural way that we understand the language of music or the language of art. And that is what I'd like to preserve in the brain when we go in, because I think of like, if we're going to erase specific parts of our, of our memories that are rooted in things that would lead us to be prejudiced against another, would that be in music? Would that be in art? And I don't think so. Those are the things that we bond with each other on. Right? It's a language, it's a communication beyond everything else. So that's kind of how I see it.
Right. Can you speak a little bit about the dystopian world that you set up? Because I actually found the world really, really fascinating. See, it seems, if I understood, like they're in a desert. The 4 cities were built around a desert, so there's seems to be the resources are kind of regulated, and everyone gets everything parsed out equally as they should.
Yeah.
Did you feel that this was almost an inevitable feature of a future like this?
Yes, I do. I look around and a lot of the issues that we have today stems from the fact that there's just, it's this like unequal way of using resources. Some of us use way more than we need. Some of us don't have it at all. So if we were to be the last, if there's only a group of us that survive and we want all of us to thrive, the first thing to do is to make sure that everyone has equal amount of resources. And in the desert, being in the desert, water is always, is essential. And there's no one else outside of the city. So everything that they created has to be able to be sustainable. The people in this world does not eat animal meat because to eat animal meat, it's just creating another level of taxing on the earth. And and the idea of growing fruits and vegetables by season and being able to take whatever that's available right then and equally distributed to people makes for less waste. And one of the things that I always kind of, mention over and over again is no excess, no waste. That is very much a theme of this world. And I hope we do kind of get there some ways too. And because I just think that we're not very good at taking care of our world. And I think we are already paying for it.
Yes.
And I do think that there are ways that we can better deal with resources. And that's just my way of dealing with resources.
Makes a lot of sense. So to switch gears slightly, I mean, you've also had a career as a advertising producer, corporate marketing strategist. You have a degree in psychology, visual arts. Have you incorporated these into your writing, or how has that field influenced your creative process?
Well, I think that all of the above, it's like everything. It's really difficult as an author to not borrow from your life everything that happened from moment you can remember. The way I grew up, in an Indonesian enclave in Bangkok, Thailand, the fact that I had to immigrate to America at the age of 12, the fact that I had to learn English as a second language, the fact that, I study psychology to understand how human minds work and our behavior, and the fact that I love art, it all kind of culminate and lead me down this path that, ends up being here. And everything in the book, from the idea that harmony can come out of trying to understand each other and a little bit better by I don't know. I mean, it's just so hard for me to answer this question because I feel like everything. I don't know if it's one specific thing, and I can't escape the fact that I wrote this book because I am me.
Yeah. And I guess that'll come into, like, you in your bio mentions parables that you knew growing up and everything.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned Draimon as a Japanese manga. Was there other ones that you feel like you really pulled from? Other stories or genres that really help shape?
Well, I love fantasy. I think, Reset, even though it's speculative fiction, there's elements of fantasy in it too. And that's why it's not a hard science where, like, everything is completely explained, because people in the city don't really know the inner workings of the city itself, but also because I just have this love for the unexplained. Growing up where I grew up in this little area in Bangkok, I was surrounded by ghost stories. I was surrounded by parables. There's this one parable in particular that when I saw your question, I was like, which parable? And I thought of this one that always stuck with me, because Thai parables, for some reason, they're either ghost stories or they're just really gruesome. And there's this one story about this farmer who was so hungry, like one day, and his mom, who's in charge of packing his lunch, brought him his lunch every day. And this one day, he was so hungry that when he saw what she brought, which was in this tiny little like lunchbox, he got so angry, because it's like, it's too small. Like, don't you know that I'm really hungry? And he ended up killing her. I'm like, what? but then once, he sat down to eat, he realized that his mother had packed so much into that lunchbox, he couldn't even finish the food.
Wow.
So that is such so to me, it's like, I always think of that whenever, like, all along this writing path, because a lot of times it's a reminder, that sometimes things look smaller than your expectation, but sometimes you just got to have patience. You have to have patience, and you have to wait and see that something small could lead to something so big. So
Kind of gruesome. I get it.
gruesome. There are some other parables. I'm like, I'm not going to talk about it because it's like it involves eating your mother in one. And I'm like, no.
So with Reset being your debut novel, do you have anything else coming in the works? Anything else that you are currently working on to get out there as well?
I'm always working on something. I was told at the beginning of this career that always, because of how long things take for you to get published. I began writing Reset in 2017. I spent a year writing it. Then I went into the process of trying to get an agent, and I got an agent in that same year. And then the next year, my agent sold it to Blackstone Publishing, my publisher. And after that, it took about a year and a half to get made. So altogether, it's 4 years. So all this time I've been writing and writing and writing. I did publish one collection of short stories in after I actually wrote this book, because I wanted to understand the writing, the book business a little bit more, and what better way to kind of learn about something than to just jump right in and do it. So I self-published it myself. And that one is more fantasy, more based on the places where I grew up. I also wrote this novel that's a YA fantasy that's in need of being edited. And I finished another adult fantasy novel that is on submission right now. And right now I'm also furiously working on the prequel to Reset that is meant to be read after Reset. So
wow. Definitely have a lot from you coming in the future.
It's the only way that you can keep your mind off of things. And so advice to all writers, keep writing. Just as soon as you finish one, write another.
So if people are listening to this and they aren't yet convinced to pick up the book, how would you pitch it to them?
Okay. Crisp, stylish prose and a story about love trying to withstand the rigors of time. This is a book subtle in its intensity, lush and beautiful, while carefully exploring what it means to be human and what we are to each other. Evocative and literary, I highly recommend it. And I cheated. I read one of the author blurbs.
It works.
Yeah, this is by my author friend David Slayton, who wrote White Trash Warlock, and she's awesome. So check out his book too.
So finally, would you be willing to read from us a passage from Reset?
So I'm going to read from the first chapter. This happens the night right before Tablaraza. And it's a scene between two characters. They're both unnamed because from each cycle, your names get changed. And so, and this is from the man's perspective. He feels it, the haze of sleep, only it is stronger than any he has ever experienced. It comes from deep inside him, a black hole that draws in all surrounding light. He struggles to keep his heavy eyelids from closing, but how does one prevent a landslide from covering the entrance of a cave? Eventually, it will consume it, taking away light until only a sliver is left, then complete darkness. Good night, sweetheart. I love you, he whispers and kisses her hand. In a slow and deliberate move, he eases the ring off her finger. Warmth emanates from the silver metal. He puts it on his little finger next to his own ring. She reaches up and kisses him. He tastes like the ocean, salt and earth. Good night, love, she says. He is losing grip. His body begins to slip into the warm embrace a rest promises. He presses his lips on her forehead. She lays her head against his chest and closes her eyes. Tomorrow we will be strangers.
Thank you very much
You're welcome.
for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Sarina, for sharing with us your new book, and we're definitely looking forward to more from you in the future.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and really wonderful, thought-provoking questions. So I really appreciate it.
No problem.
I hope I answered them.
No, yeah, they were great. So I just want to add, so Reset, published by Blackstone, is available now, and we will have a link in the description box for everyone to get their own copy. Once again, thank you very much for meeting with us today.